happiness on trial. Now, have you ever thought about putting happiness on trial? Do you know when you put happiness on trial, you know what you do? You actually put the Declaration of Independence on trial. Do you realize that? I don't think people really actually get it, where all of this comes from. When you talk about happiness and you start running these questions, you start realizing, you know what? This is not just Troy's happiness. This is all of our happiness. You just put the Declaration of Independence on trial. Why is that? The Declaration of Independence, it involves all of us being in the pursuit of happiness. Do you not realize that? We are all created equal and we have unalienable rights by our Creator. And one of those is the pursuit of happiness. Yay! In America, see, this is going to be our downfall right here. Our downfall is going to be our own declaration that everybody can be happy. Do you realize any statement has to be qualified? Every statement has to be qualified. That's why we have constitutional lawyers. They study it and they try to help us to realize, listen, you can't just say, broad stroke, everybody gets to be happy. Well, the Declaration of Independence says we do. And see, these guys are buying into it. They think that everybody gets to be happy. We're promised the pursuit of happiness and no restraint in the United States. No, 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 no. That is not the case. The Bible say. We appreciate you staying with us. Now, we really made a quick switch. That's probably the quickest move we've ever made, and I appreciate Micah for the very good information. And one of the things that I especially appreciate is the fact that he made it so relevant. I mean, when you come on television and you're talking about issues that, you know, people are watching and you've got the Baptist preacher saying it's over what? He said they've not oversimplified it. It's kind of...
It's overblown.
Overblown. You got the biggest Baptist church. Well, it's really not the biggest Baptist church in Martinsville, Virginia. It's the biggest building. It's uptown on Starling Avenue. They are, I would say, the highbrow Baptists. And their assistant pastor is saying it's overblown. Former assistant pastor is saying it's overblown. Now, you know, I have the diagnostic criteria for the diagnostic manual. What is the diagnostic manual? Well, I actually left mine at home. And as a result of leaving mine at home, it's actually the American Psychiatric Association's manual. Did you realize that the psychiatrists have a manual? They don't just get to pull down diagnosis right out of the, you know, you're sitting there and it's Dr. Freud sitting there at the desk. You know, this stuff is put together by an association. They put out their manuals. This is number 4, and I didn't bring mine. And I get on the internet and look, it actually says these criteria are obsolete. You mean to tell me that we're looking at a pedophilia in the 4th manual? I mean, in the 3rd manual, they changed homosexuality and it became obsolete. Now you look at the 4th manual and the information in the 4th manual now is obsolete. Well, that basically brings me to a statement that Troy actually made in an interview. Now I'm going to do a little homework here, and I just have to apologize because I was really getting with it over there and didn't put up my own slideshow, and I'll do that right now. And I put my phone numbers up there on that as well so that you can participate in the broadcast. And you know, it is an honor to get to be with you tonight and to participate in trying to slow down the cultural war that we're dealing with. We have a lot of individuals that don't realize, you know, we could participate in this. It's really not that difficult. As far as the battle is concerned, it's really not that difficult. I mean, in the situation where we are, it's news. Folks actually want to hear an opposition voice. I mean, we had a guy in North Carolina last year. This guy basically said you ought to fence the homosexuals up in an internment camp like they did the Japanese before World War II or when they bombed Pearl Harbor. Man, the news loved that. They played that and played that and played that. Well, So here you are, you're in your local community, and you're saying, what can I do about the situation? Well, every news outlet isn't like every other news outlet. There are some news outlets that actually like to put out the news. Well, this is one of them, Star News. They like to hear both sides. Now, there are outlets, liberal outlets that claim to be free speech. Now, I believe Charles is a liberal too, but he believes in free speech. You know what? He really believes in free speech. I'm on here tonight, and I was on his program in a news interview with a homosexual gentleman that has just gotten married to another man. Now, are you telling me, are you watching me and saying tonight, Martinsville, Virginia, and North Carolina, that's the only outlet in the whole United States that will let anyone oppose homosexuality? I just can't believe that. And I absolutely know it's not the case, because I can drive 3.5 hours to Raleigh, North Carolina, and there's another broadcast station down there that I did the same thing on. And I do the same thing on. So it's amazing that we're not participating in this battle. A lot of people in the Church of Christ are in the closet. What does that mean? You don't want to tell people what you believe. Well, if you don't want to stand up against things that are coming down the pike, then you deserve to have to put up with them. If you're not going to be a part of obstructing it, if you're not going to be a part of helping fix it, then why do you even complain? And if one of your children gets caught up in this, who can you blame? I never heard Mom and Daddy say anything. I never heard them be active. They said that they were opposed to it, but they never did anything. They never did anything about, that's just the way it goes. You can tell your children one thing and then you do another, and your children will see right through you. So here we are tonight on What Does the Bible Say? Second hour, 7th day of a tent meeting in Eden, North Carolina. 7th day, have we been off the air anytime? 8th day of broadcast. We started broadcasting last Sunday, and we've been broadcasting ever since, and we've had a news interview on the Buzz at 4 p.m. on Monday last week. We're supposed to have another interview this week, and these things they're interesting. Individuals are looking at this information as we speak. So here's what I'm saying is extremely important, is the fact that we had the interview. Here's the gentleman that we interviewed. Charles is the owner. He's the host of, I don't know if he's the owner or not. He's the host of The Buzz. I'm in the middle, and Troy here is a gentleman who is a practicing homosexual. He is a individual who's an ex-Marine. I don't know anything about the reality of anything that he says, with the exception that he is claiming that he is now married in June, and I've been on 2 or 3 or 4 times with him before. He actually came out in the Martinsville area last year or 2 years ago, and he wanted to do a show that I was involved in, and he wanted to tell his piece. Well, he actually wanted to come against me. Since then, he's threatened to get a lawyer because I continued to question him and talk with him and really present his case, and he's gotten enough of it. Well, you see what I'm saying? Now, somebody might say, well, I'm intimidating. Listen, this is not intimidate. This is free speech. He came out and wants to say that this is normal behavior, and when we start putting up the argumentation, guess what? They're running for cover. Now, you might say, well, how'd you do that, Johnny? Well, tonight we can look at this. We can basically present the arguments. Now, I haven't clipped this up. I have actually gone through and I've gotten time signatures so that we're able to look at this in real time. And let me just see here if I can find out why that's not playing. All right, let me just see here just a second. Can't see my time signature on there for some reason. And I don't want to go out of it, but I guess I'm going to have to. All right. I'm going to go full screen with it. Let's begin. I just want to show you how you can deal with these individuals. And we really deal with anybody like this. Troy is a human being. I don't have a personal problem with Troy. We've been on several shows together. We used to share this set with another gentleman. There would be 3 of us on the one side and Charles on the other. The other guy was an atheist. We've had several different individuals on this broadcast. Troy is just one of them. But I can get along in the sense that I can be civil to anybody. if they allow me to be civil, I'm civil with him. We sat there for an hour. But the thing is, here's the question. Can he deal with the situation that arises as a result of his argumentation? Now, I'm going to move you to about 7 minutes here when this all starts, and I want to let you listen to kind of how this goes. Now, I think I'll set it up a little bit. We're just beginning, and there was a show the day before. The show the day before had a very, very well-known personality to Martinsville and Henry County. She's an individual who took down an individual who was in another television broadcast station. She worked for the station. This guy is in the position of, I don't know, he's reporting or whatever. His name's Bill White over in Martinsville. And it just was extremely well known. She had a high-profile lawyer that was used by one of the women that Bill Clinton was involved in. When he was president, this lady named Ramona, she used that same lawyer, and it was just a big, big deal. Charles ends up on Oprah and I want to say Geraldo, but it's not. Maury Povich. And, this is just really big, high-profile coverage. Well, from time to time, Charles checks in with these individuals, and so he checked in with her the day before, and so he begins the program by mentioning her. Now, take a listen.
Willing to sit down with Mama, and the fact that she raised her kids, I'm interested in that. That means she's got some kind of heart, and realization that, how many people just let their kids go? I'm saying that acted like she did.
Yeah.
With Bill White. Usually a lot of them, when they throw their life away, they throw everything.
Do you remember Ramona in the day?
I've heard about it.
Heard about it. What did you hear about?
The scandal, who's sleeping who, and all that.
Right. Do you think she has a slutty image?
Like I said, I didn't pay that much attention with it. It wouldn't.
I don't look at her that way.
Well, she took off from her husband with Bill White.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever, that was before I came here, but I would be interested if there is a slutty image for Troy. When you start actually saying intolerant.
Wait a minute, I was talking about Ramona.
What's that?
You said he's a slut?
No, I'm saying.
I see a slutty image. Why would he ask that question?
What would be a slutty image if we're being tolerant today? Because
Okay.
we're really tolerating everything.
Now, my question is this is a precise question. And you heard me follow up with, because we're being tolerant. Now, folks, this is where we are today. Here's an individual who basically wants to be tolerated, and we're sitting here talking about a woman who Charles says that some people see her slutty. And he wants to know if Troy sees her slutty. Now, Troy's already said he heard about her loose, sleeping with who's who, and all that kind of stuff. I don't really get the position that he's in. Here's a guy who is just out there totally against what any standard, what standard are we going to go by? Because if we're going to go by the standard of behavior in the United States, man, the internet is allowing all kinds of stuff. But so that's not our standard. Surely he's not going to go with that standard. You can see any kind of behavior on the internet. Literally anything on the internet. And it's tolerated in the United States. So that can't be our standard. Now, I heard a person who was on the city council who goes to Jackie Poe's church. He was doing an interview with Charles, and he was telling Charles the interview had to do with the city buying the cable company. One of the cable companies went out of business before Comcast came here, and the city was thinking about buying it. And Charles was like, nah, you mean the city's going to be involved in piping porn into everybody's living room? And this guy, he's a church member at Mercy Crossing, and he's like, well, everybody's already doing it. So the city's going to be involved in that. They're going to be promoting the porn. They're going to be selling it. See, that's just because everybody's doing it. And so that's the only standard that he really has. Everybody is sleeping around, men with men, and marrying men now. So he turns around and he looks at Ramona, and he kind of turns his nose up, and Charles is saying a lot of people say that she's slutty. And so I asked Troy, just simply, Troy, where do you get off saying anybody is slutty? What standard do you use if we're using the tolerance meter? Now, folks, I did that on purpose. I set this up exactly the way I want to set it up, because this is the argument today. And you just watch him start flailing around and backpedaling, and both he and Charles end up trying to change the whole thing around. Now, I'm setting this up. They try to turn it around and make the question totally different. They don't want to talk about tolerance and happiness. They want to end up, anything that I say, they want to try to frame it differently, because when I say that it's about tolerance and happiness, you know I'm headed somewhere. Because it isn't fair for Troy to be the only one who gets to be happy. I mean, he's talking about Ramona. Maybe she was happy back there when she was running around with Bill White. I mean, she said some pretty wild things. Bill White said some really wild things in those days about Ramona. Left his wife, took up Ramona. They were all over television. Just all kinds of stuff. Now he's saying, well, I heard about her, and he's not giving her a plug. I don't know why he didn't say, well, if it makes her happy. But see, I know these people. I know exactly how they think. And I know how Charles thinks too. I know that Charles can't follow this argument, because it is not fair for one segment who is now getting to be happy to be the only one that gets to be happy, when we had to change the laws of our entire nation's history in order to make him happy. And that's really all it is. It's a law change. Well, I don't know that Ramona was breaking any law. Now, it used to be, her and Bill, they would have been put in jail for their behavior. See, the laws changed. Well, he's still hanging on to the old-timey laws over there where, people would have said that she's a slut. But he wants to get to be married to another man. And why? Tolerance makes him happy. Well, that just doesn't work. We had another caller. They were trying to frame the question, because, see, when I talk about them being happy, I'm headed to the next group of people that are waiting in the wings. This is kind of like the Late Show or the green room at one of these talk shows. You got one group come in, and then you got somebody else in the green room waiting to get their day. There's another group that's waiting to get their day. We've got the transgenders now. They've got their day, except in North Carolina. And Troy and them already got their day. They're married. They claim it's marriage. The transgenders are going in the bathrooms they want to, and we got other individuals, as we showed on our beginning slide. We have the pedophiles. They're waiting in the wings. Diagnostic criteria 302.2, pedophilia. And guess what? I didn't even realize it, but my number 4 manual they're claiming that it's obsolete. They have some more information. Well, what's that information going to be? I guarantee it's going to be a change, a shift that makes it more permissible for this crowd of individuals. Why? Because, see, the doctors in this particular field, they don't base their diagnosis on anything scientific. It's data. It's accumulated data. The more people's minds change, let me put it this way, it's called values. Used to be, in the United States, we valued a particular kind of relationship. And as you go against those values, it begins to distress you. It begins to cause trouble for you. And ultimately, it causes such a situation that these folk in this community said, you know what? This isn't proper. Well, as people's values change, then it doesn't bother you anymore, and it doesn't bother the social network that you're in. It doesn't disturb anybody at work, and all of a sudden, it's not a problem. See how values changing? You see that preacher that Micah used, that assistant pastor? His values are completely gone. He is offering beer to get people into a Bible study, and he's telling Micah that all of the business about homosexuality is overblown. I wonder if this guy doesn't have some friends that are in the homosexual community that he's not wanting to be offensive to, or he himself doesn't have a proper biblical ideology about the sin in the first place. It's one of the two. The guy he's not convicted or converted to what the Bible says, or he's got people that he's trying to harbor, or he's trying to not to offend. He may have a subset that he's involved with, and he doesn't want to bother them. Well, guess what? Same thing is happening over here. And we want you to be able to do battle with this kind of activity. And so tonight, this is right where we are. I've set up the scene for being happy. Now, when I said tolerance and being happy, that's exactly where I wanted to go. I wanted to make sure that everybody heard. Let me just make sure that everybody is hearing me set up this argument. 8 minutes. Let me just make sure I see this. 8 minutes and 23 seconds. Let me back up again. Let's do it just a little bit more.
Yeah.
Scandal, who's sleeping with and all that.
Right. Do you think she has a slutty image?
I mean, like I said, I didn't pay that much attention with it. I mean, it wouldn't.
I don't look at her that way.
When she took off from her husband with Bill White,
Yeah.
I don't think I ever, that was before I came here, but I would be interested if there is a slutty image for Troy. I mean, when you start actually saying intolerant.
Wait a minute, I was talking You said he's a slut?
No, I'm saying.
I see a slutty image. Why would he ask that
Yeah,
question?
what would be a slutty image if you were being tolerant today? Because
Okay.
we're really tolerating everything.
Okay. No, you're going back to morals and things like that.
Tolerance, yeah, just the basic tolerance. I mean, let's just throw morals out the window. Let's say we don't even have a word moral anymore,
Right.
so we're going to tolerate. How far are we going to tolerate now?
Right. And that's kind of where you draw the line, isn't it?
Well, that is the issue. I mean, tolerance is really, it has opened the door for everything.
Okay.
And you don't even have to discuss
Do you
morals.
see any good in that, or do you see all bad?
I say that I see that it's taking us just down a total decline. I mean, that's one of the reasons I brought the psychiatric manual.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm saying tolerance is the issue. Charles has got it. He's grasped on it. He doesn't have a problem with it at this point. He's just letting me point out my situation there. Now I'm going to move to 10 minutes and 50 seconds. That's just like 2 minutes away, and let's watch the subject. Let's watch the argument change. What I'm going to do is I'm setting up that he wants us to be tolerant with him. Doesn't care too much about Ramona's situation, but as long as we tolerate him, and we're going to get really into it because he's going to own my argument. He is going to own my particular argument, and then he's going to start amending it, and then he's going to try to get away from it. Watch as we progress.
And you want to live with one person?
Yeah, I want to live with one person. I
Right.
choose to spend the rest of my life with it. And I didn't do it for anybody's morals, anybody's beliefs, or
Right.
religion. It's
Right.
for me and me only. This is what makes me happy.
There it is. I told you it was coming. I introduced this argument at 8 minutes and 6 seconds. He just kind of sat there. Charles grasped it, got a hold to it. We talked around it, and Troy owns it. I didn't do it for anybody's morals. And see, these guys, people wearing these T-shirts all the time. Nobody judged me but God. We told y'all this stuff about not judging was going to backfire on you. It started out with, well, you're not supposed to judge. And we were trying to tell people in denominations that we could make a judgment based upon what the Bible says about them being in a church that's not authorized, that you have to have the Bible's authorization for the things they do in worship, who's preaching, the kind of money situation, the giving, all of that. And they would come back, well, you're not supposed to judge. Now, Charles Barkley got a hold of that real quick. Charles Barkley was doing the interview and he said, Republicans are the most hypocritical group out there. Why? The Bible says don't judge, and they're judging all these homosexuals. Now the homosexuals, everybody really, I saw a guy up in Danville the other day, yesterday, he had a shirt on, big letters, nobody judges me but God. Guarantee you that's a homosexual, it's a catchphrase. That's what they're saying these days. Nobody judges me but God. Well, really everybody's saying it. I've heard it out of all kinds of people. Well, okay, here we are. It makes him happy. I'm so thrilled that he owned it because he's going to leave it in just a minute. Because that, why does just Troy subset, the homosexual community, why are we stopping there? Why are they the only ones who get to be happy? Continue.
Gotcha.
So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. In the end, if I was to go on that religious road or whatever, in the end, when I go to be judged, I'm going for myself. Nobody else can speak for me being judged.
Right.
Only one person I got to answer to if that is the true question. It's only one person I need to answer to, and that's God. Nobody. So why does anybody even worry about what I'm doing?
Mm-hmm.
This is for me. It's not for anybody to talk about or get all upset about or worry about. It's more right or it's more wrong or whatever. It's not their realm.
Yeah.
It's not even their business realm.
See how that goes? Let's take the Bible out of it. Let's just say we don't even have a Bible. Let's take morals out of it. His basic mantra right now is what makes me happy. Now, where are we going with that, Charles? Who else gets to say what makes me happy?
Okay, now Charles is thinking it over. Well, we got Troy over here. All he's thinking about is his lifestyle choice here, and he doesn't want to have anybody speaking on it. Nobody has the right to get into the realm of morals. He says, I'm happy. And I say, fine, throw out the Bible, throw out the morals, and we'll argue on common sense, everyday common sense. Now Charles got it in his court, happy. And I say, who else gets to be happy? Now, if you don't be careful, you're going to open yourself up. Again, we set this up, knew exactly where we're going. They're not going to be happy. I guarantee you they're not going to be happy. And see, when you're not happy with your argument, here's what you do. You start framing it differently. And when you do that, when you frame it differently, then you accuse me of changing it. And then when I won't let you accuse me any longer, you go la 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 la. But in this particular instance, they say Johnny, 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 Johnny. We frame the argument. We let it come right out of his mouth. I introduced what's going on in the world today. Tolerance. Everybody's tolerating everybody. You can't even say Islamic terrorists anymore. You got to, you have to, you just can't. You got to be more tolerant than that. Well, what are they? They're Indian terrorists. No, they're not Indian. Well, see, that's too broad. Indians can be terrorists. Pakistanis can be terrorists, but they're Islamic. You see, if you don't put Islamic in there, well, we don't want to paint a broad brush on all Islam. You're not painting a broad brush on all Islam when you say that they're Islamic terrorists. No, any more than you're painting a broad brush when you talk about the folks over in Kansas, the Baptists over in Kansas. You remember what's that? Yeah, the Phelps. I'm talking about what kind of Topeka, Kansas. I can't remember what that particular Baptist church is called, but what? Jump. Say it one more time. Westboro Baptist Church. Now, that's too broad, Johnny. You don't need to say Baptist. You know, all Baptists are not homophobic. Well, I don't know that they're homophobic. I mean, and besides that, I'm not painting a broad. Micah was talking about the First Baptist tonight. That's intolerant. You shouldn't have said Baptist. You should have said those people that assemble in that building on Starling Avenue. No. That's not how it works. You don't do that when you say somebody has salmonella poisoning. Some restaurant on Commonwealth has salmonella poisoning. You want to know exactly which one. And it's intolerant to not be specific. You ought to specify. See, folks, you just can't make some people happy. So I said tolerant, they said happy. I was happy that they said happy because that's what I wanted to happen from tolerance. You see, people are wanting to be happy doing all kinds of stuff. Now, can we examine this just a minute? How come prostitutes don't get to be happy? Now, I'm not for prostitution, but I'm just asking the question. Why is it that these women who want to sell themselves and make lots of money and make themselves happy like that our government is so intolerant and won't let them do that? Why is it that smokers cannot stay in the room anymore? I mean, really? I'm not for smoking either, but I'm just making the argument here. If we're talking about being happy, man, these smokers, have you seen folk that smoke in the wintertime? I'm telling you, there's some bad weather in Virginia, and I see folks standing out in it. I'm talking about snow, drizzle, rain, sleet, anything you can imagine. There are people standing outside smoking. Why in the world don't they get in the shelter? It's against the law. Intolerance to smokers. Well, we're about to make the argument why. And Troy knows how it works. He just didn't think of it quick enough. Because see, he isn't you. Most of these folk are not everyday people. They're not used to having to argue. You know why? Because people like us don't say anything anymore. We're just saying, well, maybe these folk will go away if we just be quiet. Oh, that's working well, isn't it? What you're doing is reversing things. They come out of the closet and you're going in. Well, let's stay in the closet. Maybe they'll disappear. What's going to happen is you will disappear. Your lifestyle is going to disappear around you while you do nothing. And it's not really that difficult. Troy does not want the public square with the arguments that he's making. Take a listen.
Everybody does. Let's say we don't have a Bible. I'm fine with that. We'll just take the Bible out and now we're going to be happy.
Maybe he says he doesn't want the Bible in his life.
Fine. I said fine. Fine. So we now are ruled about what makes us happy. Now, Charles, we all can sit here and say that we're done with the Bible. It's caused all these issues, but I don't think anybody who's listening to this show today will say what makes us happy. Because, man, what makes the next person happy is going to be way up the scale. When you go to, what restaurant do you eat at?
One man's poison is another man's. How does that go? Can you look up that for me, Micah? Because this is really, when we get down to it. Now, Charles, sometimes Charles, I'm not saying Charles is slow. I'm just saying he's not paying attention. He's the host. He's got to keep the show going. So I'm making a very clear, established premise. What makes Troy happy may not be enough for the next person. And so Charles is going to have to deal with the next person sooner or later. Well, Charles is not. He's trying to figure out what to say next, because we don't let Johnny take over the show.
One man's poison is another man's cure.
Okay, one man's poison is another man's cure. Now, see how weird that's. These old sayings get to be old sayings because they're true. Oh, it's a poison. Homosexuality is poison. No, it's his cure. Can't make him happy unless it's that way. Now, he claims he's going to stay married to one guy. Not going to happen. Not going to happen. You look at the statistics for individuals in this particular lifestyle that stay monogamous. That's not going to happen. He's going to be fooling around. This guy is too risque. He prides himself in being a stripper. You ought to see the way he dresses up. This guy is not going to stay married. You see, this lifestyle actually, it trends on getting more and more. It is likened to, in some of the older psychiatric work, it's likened to a drug. And do you know that individuals who are pedophiles and they prefer men, they have a higher recidiv rate than individuals who prefer young girls? We're talking about a pedophile, somebody who's looking at, it's a man who's 16 years or older, who's looking down at adolescent children. If he prefers girls, it's possible that he may do that once and never do it again. But the possibility of not repeating it if you prefer boys is basically not going to happen. That's what the psychiatrists say. So what does that tell you? It's a homosexual behavior. Now see, both of them, it just drives them crazy when the data is presented. But I get crazy too, because these folk keep changing the data. You know why? Because they're getting pressure. Nobody wants pedophilia to be a homosexual activity. Now, I know that all pedophiles are not involved with boys. I know that all men pedophiles are not involved with same sex. Some of them actually are preying on young girls. But it is the case that the Psychiatric Association says if a man, a 16-year-old man, 16-year-old, the age for pedophilia for you to be guilty is you have to be 16 looking down. So if you're 16 and you choose a boy, the chances of you doing it again, it's just out of sight. So it is basically being pointed out as homosexual behavior. So what I'm basically doing is I'm setting this up, and I'm setting up for Charles. Now, what's he going to do? I just want you to watch what he does. It's not particularly in the argument.
Most of the time, right now, I eat at Starbucks.
Where do you eat, Johnny?
When they go eat, they eat what makes them happy.
Yeah. I actually eat. I eat what I can.
I mean, a lot of people's thinking is what makes them happy.
Well, I know
It's
that.
the level of this. It's not just what makes me happy. It's
Okay, here we go. I told you, when you get an argument, and he knows where I'm going, so he's fixing to amend. At first, it was fine. What makes me happy, man? Tolerance. I started out with tolerance. He gets happy. Charles says it's all happy. We're all going good. But now he sees happiness on trial. Now, have you ever thought about putting happiness on trial? Do you know when you put happiness on trial, you know what you do? You actually put the Declaration of Independence on trial. Do you realize that? I don't think people really actually get it, where all of this comes from. Let me just, here's the way I should do this. Hold on. When you talk about happiness and you start running these questions, you start realizing, you know what? This is not just Troy's happiness. This is all of our happiness. You just put the Declaration of Independence on trial. Why is that? The Declaration of Independence, it involves all of us being in the pursuit of happiness. Do you not realize that? We are all created equal and we have unalienable rights by our Creator. And one of those is the pursuit of happiness. Yay! In America, see, this is going to be our downfall right here. Our downfall is going to be our own declaration that everybody can be happy. Do you realize any statement has to be qualified? Every statement has to be qualified. You cannot just there's not a Bible verse that does not have to be qualified. That's why people try to say, well, you can make the Bible contradict itself. No. The Bible has statements in it, and each one of them has to be qualified by everything else in it. That's why we have constitutional lawyers. They study it, and they try to help us to realize, listen, you can't just say, broad stroke, everybody gets to be happy. Well, the Declaration of Independence says we do. And see, these guys are buying into it. They think that everybody gets to be happy. We're promised the pursuit of happiness and no restraint in the United States. No, 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 no. That is not the case. So Troy actually realizes that I'm about to restrain him. I'm about to argue that he needs to be restrained. Listen to what he does. This guy, he shifts. Now, I would have expected Charles to realize the man shifted, but he doesn't. What they're going to do is they're fixing to change the argument right in midstream, and then I'm going to catch them, and when I start catching them, they're going to try to say that I changed everything, and then when I say they did it, la 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 la, I don't want to hear you. This is how it's fixing to go.
As long as it's not hurting anyone else, why should it matter?
Who was the
Okay,
first?
so we just changed it.
I know, that's the whole
If
thing.
he's leaving,
I did.
that's a good question.
I called him, is what happened.
No, it's not, it's just,
You
I got
get to amend your position as I catch you. Now, I'll catch you on that too.
I get you. Or you catch me whatever you want to catch.
See, that's
Like I
exactly
said,
what's
you know,
gonna happen.
it's,
I wasn't ready. What did you catch him? What did you,
Yeah, what did you catch?
Okay,
catch
it started out with the simple argument, it makes me happy. Okay, I
I
started
try to keep
working
it
on
simple.
that. I
Keep
started
it simple.
working on
That's why you
that.
gotta keep it
And
simple.
that argument doesn't fit anymore because we all know what makes him happy isn't what's going to make the next deviant happy. They're going to deviate. Now, he can take
Why
deviate
are
any
you,
way he wants
you
to.
calling him a deviant?
I'm saying he's deviated from what we have actually been
Pull up the
doing.
tapes, I've said it before, the whole thing. What makes me happy as long as it doesn't hurt anybody else. I've always said that.
You know, he said pull up the tape. Okay, you know what? I take the challenge. Let's pull up the tape on Troy. We actually have, I think I have a 77 tapes, 77 different clips on Troy, but I'm just going to use one, I hope, that I have lined up here. Let's see if I can get this to go in with this one, and we'll just cue up Troy on Troy. Everybody knows what Troy says. Everybody's heard him say, especially, let's see, 13, 17. Let me keep my time signature here. Let's see what Troy says. Does he say that he's always said, 13, 17, he's always said, just as long as it doesn't hurt anybody? Is that really what he said? Take a listen.
Being made, I'd like to hear Troy argue against a psychiatrist in the University of Toronto who's now saying the same thing that Troy said about his homosexuality.
Okay.
Cannot choose.
You ready? You ready for this? Okay. This is common sense going from somebody, a human, okay? Listen to this real carefully. You keep trying to compare us to animals or whatever, having sex with animals. When an animal can tell me yes or no, he wants to have sex with me, then we'll say it's morally right. Until
Okay. We had introduced bestiality in some of this. Micah talked about it tonight, somebody having sex with an animal. And so he said, we've said that this is coming next. And so he said, well, you're trying to class me with an animal. As long as when an animal can say yes, then it will be yes or no, it will be morally wrong. Now wait a minute. So are you saying that it's not morally? Let's listen to that again, because little children can say yes and no. They can be groomed. These priests were getting many of these children to the point where they weren't objecting. And that's exactly what pedophiles do. They set up a scenario. Uncle Joe, he sets up a scenario often where he grooms the child, and our school system's doing the same thing, unknowingly, maybe, but our school system is basically introducing our children to all of these sexual images and, things that used to would just freak a child out. Now they're like, well, we saw that in second grade. What? Yeah, well, we're used to seeing, they actually have to know, they have to be able to verbalize different body parts of the opposite sex. That's why my kids are not in the public school system. And when they were in a public school system, they had to announce back in the day that they were having sex education, and you could keep them home. So now they're not horrified. They're not horrified. Well, you see, they're saying, well, this stuff's going to happen, so you should be able to at least get them to recognize stuff so they don't get hurt. That's like a bomb maker. Well, kids are going to make a bomb, so you might as well tell them how the bomb is made so they don't blow themselves up. Is that really how we want to work this thing? How about we just resist bomb making? How about we resist this kind of behavior? Well, we're not going to resist it. It's going to happen. Well, are you sure? Is there no other obstruction? There's no other way to handle this? And so let's listen to Troy again about this business, about what makes a thing morally wrong and right.
listen to this real carefully. You keep trying to compare us to animals or whatever, having sex with animals. When an animal can tell me yes or no, he wants to have sex with me, then we'll say it's morally right.
Okay, I got that. If an animal could say yes or no, it would be morally right to have sex with an animal. Can a child say yes or no? Well, absolutely. See, when we talk about pedophilia, we're talking about 16, and then you have to go down, and the person has to be a certain age, and it gets kind of difficult sometimes to figure which one of these manuals you're going to use. So they basically say whatever the law says. Well, you can't trust the law. We've just seen this because the law used to say you couldn't marry a man. A man can't marry a man. Well, now Troy's married to a man. That's not his man. This is Larry Serber. He's an atheist, and he's reason we're in this as much as anybody else. He says there is no God. So if there is no God, the Declaration of Independence is God. Everything makes anybody happy. And man, I'm telling you, this guy got pretty happy over here. He got so happy that his wife got really upset with him about saying what he wished that he could do. Oh man. It's just Pandora's box here that we're opening up. And what in the world is Troy, what is he trying to make out of that?
632.
If I slip a little bit, so
You'll change it again before we're through.
No, we're not. If I slip a little bit.
But the simple argument, it makes me happy. Okay, I started working on that. And that argument doesn't fit anymore because we all know what makes him happy isn't what's going to make the next deviant happy. They're going to deviate. Now, he can take...
You're calling him a deviant?
I'm saying he's deviated from what we have actually been
Well,
doing.
the tapes, I've said it before, the whole thing. What makes me happy as long as it doesn't hurt anybody else. I've always said that.
Now, it hurts an animal. He's saying it hurts an animal because an animal cannot consent. Now, if an animal could consent and say yes or no, you hurt him, it would be morally right. If the animal could consent, there would be nothing wrong with it because the animal is saying it doesn't hurt. Well, then what about pedophilia? I'm just saying, listen, folks, there is plenty. Are you ready for the plenty? There is plenty of evidence in the psychiatric community. Oh, well, excuse me. Dr. Kinsey wasn't a doctor of psychiatry. His main poison that ended up being his cure, he studied wasp. I don't really know how a guy goes from studying wasp to actually stimulating in a sexual way infants. But he did it. And he is the guru of all gurus. Charles promotes him. Larry Serber promoted him. And, when Charles first started asking me about it, it was way back there. He asked me if I ever heard of Kinsey. Sure, I've heard of Kinsey. He is a pedophile, pervert. I convinced Larry that he was a pervert, and then Larry switched back on me and accused me of lying. But here's his book, Human Sexuality of Male. What's this chart got? It's the age of individuals that Dr. Kinsey supposedly is chronicling that are 5 months old, 11 months old, 2 years old, 2.5 years old, 4 years old, 4 years old, 4 years old, 7 years old, 8 years old, 9 years old, 10 years old. Well, what are we doing with these 5-month-olds? Well, the chart says number of orgasms. What? Who in the world is involved with this kind of activity? Well, Dr. Kinsey. And the pedophiles that he is chronicling? You mean he wasn't turning them into the police? No. He was basically telling them what to do and how to do it. He talks about the time involved. 38 minutes, 1 hour, 9 minutes, 65 minutes, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 hours, 24 hours? A 4-year-old for 24 hours? Are you kidding me? Yeah, he's a pedophile. No, he's a doctor. No, he's a pedophile. Well, it makes him happy. And, we're discussing, does it hurt? Well, who in the world are we going to ask these questions? Because we can see that our psychiatric community has lost its mind. The WASP studying community that's gone into sexuality has lost its mind. The atheists have lost their mind. The talk show host has lost his mind. Now, Charles is supposed to be a rational individual who's a news gatherer. He has yet to read this book or have a look at it. And I've been pulling this book out, I don't know how long. Now, I'm going to let you see Larry Serber. Watch Larry Serber switch on me. Let me see if I can recall where Larry is. He's on this other one. Let me go back to it. Let's see. Larry Serber. Here he is. Now, he's passed. And this was a discussion after he had said to me, admitted that Kinsey was a pedophile. Take a listen to his backtracking.
Because he was telling me some things that were not true. And I started sort of being critical of kids and said, well, he made these little boys masturbate for 12 hours or so. That was not true. That was just some crazy stuff that woman up in Pittsburgh and followed.
oh, that's some crazy stuff up there at Lynchburg, woman at Lynchburg. And Charles is saying, right. Where's the investigative reporter? Right. You know, I get to pick back. When they do their things, when they change arguments right in front of you, and when they don't push back, this guy is saying that Judith Reisman up at Lynchburg is the reason why we have this book called The Male Human Sexuality that completely revolutionized the homosexual community. Is he trying to tell us that this is the reason why that I said what I said about Kinsey? This book is Kinsey's own research and chronicles of other people's research. Look at this. Here is, I don't remember what table it is. It's 318. It ends up being 318 chronicled events. I'm sitting here thinking about this. It is just unbelievable that there is a book about human sexuality in which this guy was allowed to put forth the fact that he chronicled himself and other individuals that were involved with 318 different people in population. The population, how many people in population? We've got our lower third down there, but at the bottom down here it says 318. Cases not reaching climax. Well, what are we talking about here? 2-month-old, 3-month-old, 4-month-old, 5-month-old, 8-month-old, 9-month-old, 10-month-old, 11-month-old, 12-month-old. Up to 1 year, up to 2 years, up to 3 years, up to 4 years, up to 5 years, up to 6 years, up to 7 years, up to 8 years, up to 9 years, up to 10 years. Finally, he gets up to a 15-year-old. You know, I just can't even believe that the United States just didn't. It's like the Titanic sinking here, and nobody said anything. Kinsey started sending his books out for free. Started sending out to the medical community for free. Wow, this guy that studied WASP. Have you heard about him? Man, if the internet was around, he would have I think he would have probably gotten himself in trouble, because see, it was so undercover. He sent it out to the law enforcement agencies for free. Next thing you know, they're looking at this and they're like, whoa, this is data. No, this is breaking the law. No, this is data. This guy, have you seen this guy that studies WASP? This dude, he's gotten way over into another field. Well, what's he doing in this field? Is he qualified? No. Does he know how to bring together statistics? No. So, it just amazes me that these folks get away with making these arguments. Jerome, what does the Bible say?
Yeah, Johnny. One thing that's becoming apparent to me in watching you put out these statistics from these books are the individuals, the children who were in this process or experiment, or whatever you want to call it. They did not have parental authority or guidance, or they must have been children that were in institutions.
No.
How did he have access to these children to do this?
Sadly, it's not the case. It is not the case that they were just institutionalized or they were left, to themselves. Some of these are actually chronicled by individuals that are caregivers. And that's where Judith Reisman comes in. This woman has spent her life investigating this, and it's just simply amazing what ends up coming out. Some of these are roving pedophiles that are in fact snatching children, but some of it, unbelievably, is coming right from homes, and Kinsey was telling them exactly how to give him the research. And when people,
if that were found out today by the parents were involved in something like that, they would be arrested.
Well, you know what?
Here's for much less, for pictures of less.
Here's where we are. Somebody help me here. Y'all might not be able to help me, but I'm pretty sure that I'm right here. Indiana University is where the Kinsey Institute is. And the government of the United States cannot get in to see what's in the Kinsey Institute. Now, is that not ridiculous? We know that there are pictures of pedophilia. There is research about pedophilia. There are films about pedophilia. Kinsey himself involved in all this kind of stuff. And somehow or other, our government does not have the wherewithal to get inside and get the evidence, because men like Rockefeller And folks of that notoriety were actually giving money, the Rockefeller Institute were giving money to the Kinsey Institute, and now we know that this was simply a sex organization gone crazy. But for some reason, we can't see the Kinsey Institute. It's too sacred and hallowed.
Well, I'm sure that the Freedom of Information Act...
No, you're wrong.
Yeah, I can't...
No, I've already been through this. I've been through this top to bottom. Judith Reisman was Ronald Reagan's czar. Her job was, she was the same guy that Barack Obama just had for his Attorney General. She was the Attorney General for the juvenile district. He gave her a $600,000 budget and set her to work. And she ended up having Chester the molester. You remember, I'm not saying that you remember the pictures, but everybody in our age remembers that one of Playboy's Penthouse or Hustler 1 had this cartoon called Chester Molester. She had the artist in that person in prison. But she was not able to get into the Kinsey Institute. Freedom of Information Act, nothing. Nothing is breaking the Kinsey Institute open.
Well, it is amazing, and it reminds me of Nazi Germany.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you for your call. Is that the only person that's awake out there tonight? I know we are at a different time zone. What time is it?
11. We're pushing 11.
Well, folks, that's just amazing. I'm satisfied that we have a lot of information out to put on the internet, and we have another 40 minutes, 30 minutes of that broadcast that I was showing you, and we will look at it more. It gets amazing as Troy begins to conceptualize in his mind that there is a psychiatric association that has put together these books, and he makes this astounding statement. Why do they keep changing the book? And then he said, they didn't consult me when they put that in there. Really? The Psychiatric Association has to consult Troy in order for us to have a Psychiatric Association manual? Well, I don't know who they've been consulting, but they change it every time you turn around, and pedophilia has gotten into a position where it's next in line. It's no longer looked at the way it used to be, in a horrifying way. Thanks for watching us. I know that Micah thanks you.
It's 10:48.
Okay, well, he said it was pushing 11. I'm so glad that it's not right at 11, because I want you to hear Troy actually say. Let's move right quick, and as we did a moment ago, we set this up. You know, it's not that difficult. I'm going to go to 15 minutes and 19 seconds, and let's let Troy start to realize how things are.
Two separate issues.
I argue and catch y'all, and then y'all bring in another argument to say, Johnny, you're trying to catch me. Are you?
Johnny.
You're trying to catch me, and I've got...
I told you. You see, when I catch them, they try to reframe it. They started reframing the argument and saying, well, Johnny, pedophilia is a different thing altogether. No, we started out on what makes people happy. This makes him happy. Having sex with young kids makes pedophiles happy. Oh, no, that's a different argument. Age is different than what we're talking about. Oh, really? Well, let's just move ahead right quick to 2740, and let's see what Troy says about age. 2740.
Why don't you go ahead and tell them?
That's all that counts. We're both legal.
Right. You're not married to a 16-year-old.
I want to tell it because...
You're not married to a 16-year-old.
No, we're both legal. That's all that counts. We're both legal.
Right. But why can't you give...
Hold on.
The person is at least age 16 years and at least 5 years older than the child or the children. So it can be a 20-year-old with a person that's less than 5 years, that's 5 years younger than them. You don't get to say that it's a crusty old man, you know, that's looking at little bitty children. This is the American Psychiatric Association's definition for what pedophilia is.
Right. But Johnny, I think it's a cheap shot.
Why?
To compare his homosexuality and him getting married.
I don't care.
How old is your partner?
I don't care. He's younger than I. We're both 21 plus.
21 plus.
Why don't you go ahead and tell them?
That's all that counts. We're both legal.
Right. You're not married to a 16-year-old.
I want to tell it because...
You're not married to a 16-year-old.
No, we're both legal. That's all that counts. We're both legal.
Right. But why can't you give me his age?
I don't need to give his age. Our age does not matter.
Age does not matter. Well, how did we get to that point? Because, you see, they are saying that everything, I've reframed everything. You see, if you keep pressing these folks, they end up falling right at your feet. Oh, a moment ago, it was Johnny. You've changed it to an issue about age, and then he turns around and says, when you start pressing to find out how old his partner is, and did Micah tell you? I loved it when Micah brought this out. Older homosexuals prey on younger men. And he knows that the guy he's involved with is much younger, and he doesn't want to tell it. Doesn't matter. Well, it's legal. Well, what happens when we get to the point where the DSM changes things to the degree that this is now legal? What are we going to do then? Let's look at the diagnostic criteria for 302.2. You remember this. Go and look it up on the internet. Study it. 302.2, the pedophile. What is the pedophile's diagnosis? Well, let me drop down here because we're going to run out of time. Now notice this. It says this criteria is obsolete. Well, I have the DSM-4. I thought, usually it's 3 strikes and you're out. You stop changing stuff at 3. Well, these folks have 4, and now they must be into another area. How do you look at these individuals? Over a period of at least 6 months, recurrent, intense, sexual arousing fantasies, sexual urges or behaviors involving sexual activity with the prepubescent child or children, generally aged 13 or younger. Now here's when you start treating it. The fantasies and the sexual urges or behaviors cause clinically significant distress or impairment in social, occupational, or other important areas of function. Well, what if these fantasies, sexual urges, or behaviors don't cause clinically significant distress? Who's in the clinic? Well, Alfred Kinsey's in. Hello. I'm the WASP specialist who has turned into gathering data on stimulating 1 and 2 month old babies. I'm here to help you. What's your question? Well, doc, I'm going through these difficulty in life, or not difficulty, I'm going through these changes in life, and I'm just wanting to know if this is clinically significant that this person is thinking about looking at persons lower than 13 years old as in a way that they shouldn't. Well, Dr. Kinsey would say, go ahead. Why? Makes you happy. Do you know what Dr. Kinsey's book was about? He was trying to prove that we are, in fact, sexual animals. And as sexual animals, you simply fulfill yourself. That's what we were designed for. The guy don't believe in God. The evolutionists don't believe in God. We're just evolving. How do we know that we're not evolving into what we will one day be? Everybody will be a pedophile. That's what Kinsey was headed for. 318 different cases, and he wasn't arrested. I just don't have much confidence in our government to be able to stabilize us. You know why? The Declaration of Independence says the pursuit of happiness. My friends, can we all pursue happiness? Somebody's got to get the thinking cap on. The adults need to get into the room. Something needs to happen here. I know the First Baptist Church in Martinsville, they've run amok. They're not going to be able to help us. I appreciate Mr. Campbell. What's his first name? Lawrence Campbell over at Bible Way standing up on the phone and saying that homosexuality is a sin. I mean, where are all of these religious people? Do you realize in Virginia that we have a representative in the government in Washington D.C.? That representative listens to 720,000 individuals in our district. If we could get enough individuals to make a fuss, they have to vote against this stuff. Right now, nobody's making a fuss. Preacher's not making a fuss. Nobody's making a fuss. But members of the Church of Christ are making a fuss in Virginia and in North Carolina. Where's everybody else? Why aren't y'all out there making a fuss? Now, I give it. Some guys are putting stuff out on their marquees. But, the marquee that's just the obvious place. You're not even off your own property. We got to take this fight off of our property, to the streets, to the marketplace, to Mars Hill like Paul did. It can be done. And if you don't know how to do it, go to our YouTube, Bible Says TV. And you just go ahead and tune in to our broadcast that's going on, or you can tune into one of our archive broadcasts, Bible Says TV on YouTube. We have covered this, and if you don't get enough information, you can simply get on Facebook, on my Facebook, on the Martinsville Church of Christ Facebook, and ask for material. Man, we have years. I interviewed Judith Reisman, Ronald Reagan czar, juvenile justice system. She was the head of juvenile justice system in Ronald Reagan's time frame before the pharmaceutical company shut them down. I have an interview with her, a lot of information, books that are available. We can fight this fight. We can push back. Get out of the closet. Folks, it's time to do something. And the best way to do it is using your Bible and your God-given brain and some courage that comes from a backbone. God bless you. Always ask for it. What does the Bible say? Thank you for doing the show there first, Noel. That was very helpful. Very helpful.
Yeah.